Welcome into Other People's Shoes, the podcast where listeners get to step into the lives of others and see the world through their shoes. Your host, Neil Matthews, is a seasoned interviewer who has a natural talent for empathizing with his guests and drawing out their unique perspectives. Through a combination of storytelling and insightful questioning, Other People's Shoes explores the lives of a diverse range of guests, from everyday people to celebrities and thought leaders. With a warm and welcoming style, Neil creates a safe and supportive space for his guests to share their stories, while also challenging listeners to broaden their perspective and think more deeply about the world around them. So tune in to Other People's Shoes with Neil Matthews and get ready to step into other people's shoes.
Hey, come take a walk with me, not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. I am your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much for hitting play today. Always excited when we get to play together. Isn't that fun? Like, remember the days of playing together, like in the sandbox, and, you know, somebody would throw sand at you, or you really didn't take it personally, did you? I mean, I may or may not have. And then years ago on that same kind of sandbox thread, I actually met a guy who is world famous for making sand castles down in the California kind of Santa Monica area. He's world renowned even. I don't know why. I was thinking about sand castles today. They're building these things and then having the waves come and crash them down. Maybe that relates to what we're going to be talking about today. Maybe we could find somebody, if we could only find somebody to really decode the mysteries of our life of why we talk about sand castles so much. Well, luckily for us, we found said person. Help me welcome in Coach Sarah. Sarah, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm always good when we get to do these things. Like, this is the real McCoy. This is the real gem of my life. Okay, maybe it's my wife. You know, this is probably a close second. Okay, maybe this like third, because really my daughter's... Okay, I don't know where we are. Can you help me with that already?
Yeah, I mean, I have many gems and joys in my life, and I think they all play a different role.
And that's the joy of life, is they all have like a certain facet or a box to be put in, per se.
Yeah, absolutely. They all meet different needs.
All right. Well, Sarah, help us with this, because I love to ask this question as we lead off our time together. And that's this: what style of shoe do you like to wear?
Flip-flops. I'd wear them every day, all day. If it didn't snow in Kentucky, I would wear them. It does. So I switched to Uggs in the wintertime.
Now, why flip-flops?
Just, you know, I don't know. My feet are free. They're not confined. I just like the freeing feeling of flip-flops.
The freeing feeling of flip-flops. Now, help me with this, because as a guy, I don't know these things. That's why I'm asking said things. Is there like a style or a brand of flip-flop, or is it like the Old Navy dollar bin flip-flop, or help me more with that?
Once you try Crocs, you never go back.
So you were a Croc fan.
Croc flip-flops are my favorite.
Croc flip-flops. I'm going to have to ask about that and maybe do some research into that. I've never been a flip-flop guy. I am a shoe nut, but I've never done the flip-flop thing. I can't get around that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I love them. I wear them until it's too frigid. I probably push the limits on it.
Now, help me with that. What is considered frigid for you? Is it 20 degrees?
Okay,
is that frigid, or does it get colder than that?
No, in Kentucky, maybe in the 40s. Then I'm like, you know, I can't wear my flip-flops anymore.
Well, out here in Oregon, we don't get a lot of snow, but we get rain, at least in Southern Oregon where I'm at. My kid's sister, I call her that. She's been a friend since middle school. So she passed over the friend margin, and now she's in the more sister category. She wears flip-flops all the time. Middle of winter, rain, doesn't matter. She's rocking her flip-flops. So she could, and you could probably be good friends as far as that goes, as far as the footwear aspect.
Sounds like my spirit animal.
I'll let her know that. So Sarah, help me with this, because I'm dying of curiosity here, truly. You're really big on TikTok. I mean, let's just get that out there. Like, you have been making quite the presence, but you've been doing very well over there.
I have been.
The thing that I'm curious about is this whole decoding of life. When I think about our season that we're in, this mask season, this idea that somebody's maybe been hiding behind something, concealing something, they've been maybe afraid to step out of a shadow or whatever it may be. For you, when you think about this mask and this idea idea of maybe somebody hiding behind something, what comes to mind for you?
What comes to mind for me is fear. I mean, it really is, fear is the glue that holds us down. If we want to stay attached to anything negative in our lives, there's usually an element of fear there. For me and in my business, I was terribly afraid to do this because I don't know anything about business and I didn't know anything about technology and I didn't know anything about putting myself out there. I just decided to do it afraid, which I guess is what bravery is. I tried to show up the same in my videos as I do in my real life. I tried to be very extremely authentic, my story and my experiences. I'm not for everybody, just like anybody who grows a following on TikTok, you're going to get negative feedback. But I've learned over the years that I am who I am and I like who I am. God loves me and my husband loves me. My kids love me. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. And so I'm going to step out from behind any masks and present myself. People will either appreciate what I have to offer or not, but I was not going to let fear hold me back. And I think fear holds a lot of people back.
How do you feel about hazelnut?
Hazelnut. In the form of like Nutella, like butter, it's amazing.
When you think of the flavor hazelnut is why I'm asking.
Do
When I say hazelnut, there's a lot of things that come to mind. Coffee, Nutella, as you mentioned. The reason why I bring this up is my wife said to me a couple of years ago, we were in the middle of something and I was kind of dealing with some people pleasing stuff. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Trying to understand things, trying to understand some of the relationships in my life. And she said, babe, I don't know how to tell you this. You're like hazelnut. I was like, what? I love a hazelnut. She goes, yeah, I know you do, but not everyone else does.
Yeah.
And you're saying those things, like as you're kind of, breaking down a little bit more of your story, that's what it reminded me of, is the idea that you're not going to be everyone's flavor.
It's okay.
That is okay.
So okay. It is so okay because at the end of the day, you have to decide whose opinions matter in my life. The random guy on TikTok who sees 30 seconds of my video and disagrees with me, or my husband who knows me intimately and who knows all of me, and God who created me, and my children who look up to me and are expecting me to care for them and guide them and love them. Those opinions matter to me. Some random guy on TikTok who says you don't know what you're talking about is okay. I'm not for everyone. And my husband often says to me, if you don't have haters, you're doing something wrong, and that there's no such thing as bad press. And so when I see comments like that come up on TikTok, I'm like, I just say in my head, hey, bud, thanks for boosting the algorithm. The more comments, the better. The following grows and my business grows. I've just learned to accept. I've really become unoffendable in my life. And I think the biggest part of my healing was becoming very unoffendable, because offense is honestly, it's a choice. It is a choice, because when we decide to be offended, we say it's because your opinion really matters to me. Somehow we actually get to choose who matters to us and who doesn't, whose opinions get weight in our lives and who doesn't. When we really grasp that, things from in people that don't pay my bills, that don't, walk in my shoes, that don't have the life that I have, it matters none. It matters none. I give everything I can to my paying clients. I give everything I can to the viewers on TikTok. When I produce content, I give everything I can to my family, and I give everything I can to the Lord. And that's all I can do.
Like I can't applaud loud enough as you're speaking. Truly, when I'm processing through what you're saying, and I'm really hearing what you're saying here. But how did you get to that point where you're just like, you know what? These are the people that matter. Everyone else is kind of noise that I can just let dissipate away.
I was in a really, really bad marriage for 10 years. I have 2 beautiful children out of that marriage. It was an abusive marriage. It was a destructive marriage. There were a lot of really serious problems in that marriage. And then I got divorced. I chose to leave after lots of infidelity on his behalf, some really significant problems with alcohol abuse. We got divorced. It was a really not good battle for the children. He ended up passing away from his addictions. It was a very, very tragic loss, and it was a very profound loss, and it was a very complicated loss. And it happened at the exact same time that my mom, who was like the closest person to me, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And then at that same time, I had another relationship end, that somebody I was dating post-divorce. I started getting really awful migraines, like to the point where I couldn't function. It was vestibular migraine, and I was very dizzy and had vision problems and pain. And I was at like the lowest point of life. I mean, I was broke. I was a single mother that was coping with post-traumatic stress from abuse and then this loss and then caring for my mother. My health was down the tubes, which was all stress related. I mean, migraines are very much a disease of the nervous system, I know now. It could not get any lower. I thought to myself, how did I get here? How did I get here? And when I started retracing the steps that led me to this place that I was in, so much of it was I stayed in a relationship where I was not just not valued, I was devalued. And that said, it was a very hard realization saying that said something about me, that I stayed as long as I stayed and that I chose someone that wasn't healthy. He had a lot of really great qualities as well. I don't want to, especially now that he's not here to defend himself, act like he was all terrible. I did stay in a relationship that somebody should not stay in. And so I had to point the finger at myself. And when I did that, it was very eye-opening because I was always focused on others. What do other people think of me? How am I showing up for everyone else? And it was never, how am I showing up for myself? I thought to myself, oh girl, you have all the knowledge in the world, but you are applying nothing to your own life. Kind of a come to Jesus moment. Literally, I came to the feet of Jesus and I said, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I have got to pick myself up because I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to be able to care for my kids. I'm not going to be able to keep my job, just spiraling very quickly downhill into emotional destruction. I think there was a big intervention from God, but a lot of it was me just doing the hard work of deciding that I had to recognize that I had some profound insecurities that were affecting my life. It was affecting who I was choosing as partners, how I was coping with trauma and tragedy. It was playing a role in my friendships. And I had to point the finger inside of myself. Obviously, having a PhD in social psychology, I had knowledge on the table, but I wasn't applying it. Doctors make the worst patients type of thing. When I started doing the real healing work, which really revolved around things like capturing my thoughts and deciding, becoming an authority over my thoughts and deciding what thoughts were true and what was not true, and what was productive and healthy and what was not productive and not healthy, and actually deciding what thoughts to engage with, which is a skill I teach my clients. And it's a hard skill to learn. It's a hard skill to develop. It takes practice. It's like going to the gym. You're not going to see results doing it one day. You have to be consistent. And now it's automatic. And then I learned skills, self-regulating my nervous system. My nervous system had been in fight or flight for decades, and I'm stuck there. I had to learn how to soothe myself. I had no tools to actually soothe my own nervous system. Took control of how I thought. Decided to become an authority over my thoughts, that I was going to decide what thoughts I was going to keep and what thoughts I was going to throw out the door, and decide I'm not participating with that. That's not healthy. And then I learned a lot of skills to self-regulate my own nervous system. And then it was like I started seeing what was really important. Somebody wasn't able to trigger me, because then when I had the thought of, oh, well, I'm not loved, or I'm not cared, or I'm disrespected, I would go, that's not true. That thought's not true. I'm loved. I'm so loved by my Heavenly Father. It's not even funny. There's not even a context for that love. You know what? If this person's not respecting me, then I don't have to engage with them. That's an easy solution. I don't have to fight to prove anything to this person. And so I started doing things like controlling my thoughts, setting boundaries, responding versus reacting, because I could control my nervous system and I wasn't reactive. I was calm. And so it was a set of skills that I learned. And now at the end of the day, there's really not anything that gets me too tore up anymore. I know that when thoughts come in, oh, well, that person's such a jerk, I don't engage with that thought. I'm like, you know what? That's accusation. That's giving that person an identity that I can't give them. I reframe that thought. I capture that person's a jerk. I capture that and I say, no, I'm not engaging with that. This person did something I didn't like. What is my role? What do I need to set a boundary? How do I need to respond to that to be okay? And so I changed my entire way of thinking just by deciding that I could. I really did use God's truth to help me with that. That was the truth I held all my thoughts to. I'll just teach this in a secular way as well. It's called cognitive reframing. You take a thought, you capture it, you hold it to the truth, and you decide purposefully and consciously to reframe that thought. It did take a lot of work. I did not date. I really took a sort of an isolation journey for about a year to decide that I was going to change who I was. I can't be a victim of my own thoughts and feelings anymore. And that's what I was. I was a victim victim of my own thoughts and feelings. I had pride in that victimhood. I mean, I reject everything associated with victimhood now because I'm an overcomer. I'm not a victim. Life traumatizes everybody. What are you going to do with it?
That was very traumatic. Sounds like the reprogramming, kind of recalibrating to really say, okay, who am I gonna be? I don't know if you're a fan of Disney. There's that classic line. She says, mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? Maybe look deep inside the mirror. James talks about that, by the way, looking intently into the mirror and seeing it and then immediately going away from it and forgetting what you look like, which always seems weird to me. But I feel like that's living in denial. What I'm hearing you say is I couldn't live in denial any longer. I had to make a change. I had to be proactive.
I always felt like I was a victim of what happened to me. In psychology, we call that external locus of control. Things happen to me. I'm a victim of other people. I am a victim of my circumstances, people more powerful than me, other entities, other forces. And I am just a bystander in all of that happening. And I can't control it. That's a very bad place to be. External locus of control is related to depression. It's related to anxiety. I couldn't think that way anymore. I was so powerful. God gives you power, love, and a sound mind. That's very clear in scripture. And I was powerful. I actually could decide who I wanted to be. It didn't click right away, kept coming back to it, and I kept trying and I kept learning and doing it anyway, even when it was hard. Once you get the tools and the skills and you develop some muscle around it, you build the muscle. It got easier. Everything started to become so much more clear.
So the decoder thing, help me decode that. See what I did there?
Yeah.
What's the genesis of that? Why start that?
Watching my ex-husband die at 36 years old, the father of my 2 little girls, it really hit me that, life can be really, really short. And we are a product of our decisions. I loved my children so much. I mean, they're a huge part of this, that I said, who do I want them to see? Do I want them to see someone who is emotionally out of control, somebody who has raging anxiety, somebody who cannot have a healthy relationship with another person, somebody who never could overcome the difficulties of their life? Or did I want to teach them that resilience is possible, that growth is possible after trauma? Anxiety is controllable. It's fixable because it starts with our thoughts, learning to control our nervous systems, and that it's not just something you have. You're just not an anxious person. No. You are participating in the things that contribute to the anxiety. And that's a hard pill to swallow. Some people do not want to hear that. And there may be people listening to this that are going to say, you don't understand. It's a disorder. And I'm like, I do understand. I had the disorder. I had it pretty severely. And now I don't. If I can figure out, and I had help and I had tools, I had a therapist and I had the Bible and I had some great people in ministry that guided me in a lot of different ways, but I drastically changed who I was. And so if I didn't do it myself, I probably wouldn't believe it, but I did it. So I do believe it. And I think that it's a worthwhile journey. Who wants to spend this life suffering? I don't.
Okay, so help me with understand why get into coaching. I mean, obviously, because I feel like you have this skill set, you have these tools, you're really wanting to now go out and really make a difference in the world, which who doesn't want to do that? Is that kind of how the coaching gets started, or what made you make that big jump into that?
Like, I just discovered TikTok and I started making videos about what I was learning and what I was doing, and people really liked it. They were like, wow, I've never heard that before. I've never understood things like that before. I did a lot of study into attachment theory. I mean, I really think it explains so much about human behavior inside of relationships. And I'm just one of those rabbit hole people. When I get interested in something, I want to know everything about it. And I take things down the rabbit hole, and I took my healing down the rabbit hole. And so as I was getting better, I just started making TikToks about my journey, about what I was learning, about relationships, started getting this audience like really quickly. And I was like, wow, I wonder if, I could make some money doing this, because I really do want to help people. I was giving people lots of free advice. There's a way to better support my family and truly help other people. I mean, at the end of the day, my motivation is I want to make a difference in people's lives, because people deserve to live good lives. All humans have suffered in ways, and some people just don't have the skills and the tools to come out of that suffering. They just don't know what to do. They can't fight out of that environment to change it. It starts by changing the inside. We may not even be able to control our external circumstances. Maybe we are stuck in an abusive situation that we can't leave yet for a number of reasons. But how do I cope? It all starts on the inside. And so I grew this following. I was giving people free advice. Then I said, you know what? Maybe I could do this as a business. And so I had no idea what I was doing, not a clue in heck. I started studying coaching, the coaching process, the coaching dynamics. what did a coach do versus, a therapist, and how was coaching different? And I started studying other coaches and the process and everything. And I said, okay, I'm going to try this. So I had somebody help me do a website, and I just put myself out there. It really came together very, very seamlessly. And I'm very thankful for that. I love it. It's been an amazing journey, and I'm so glad I decided to do it.
I'm always fascinated by why people get into what they do. Religion, why they believe, what they do for a living. I don't know. Those have always been my kind of two fascinating pop button topics. There's still a lot of pain when you talk about the old relationship. As much as time may have passed, the pain still may be there.
Yeah.
Ever a way or a day that you won't wake up and maybe have that pain still? Or do you use that pain maybe as motivation to continue to get better every day?
I don't think emotional pain is necessarily a bad thing. And I think if it's one thing, I'm stealing this from Brene Brown. I'm not going to get sued by her by saying this, but people will do anything to avoid emotional pain. She's 100% correct. If I have ever learned anything in this business, it's that people do anything to avoid emotional pain. But honestly, the way that you heal is you feel pain. You feel it and you accept it, and you aren't scared of it, and you don't try to suppress it, and you don't try to run from it or band-aid it or anything. You just face that ugly monster in the closet for what it is, and you accept it, and you say, it hurts today. And here's the thing. Some days it doesn't hurt at all. Some days it's like nothing ever happened. But grief is like it's a weird emotion. And then some days it feels like it just happened. The day that I had to tell my daughter her dad had died was the most traumatic experience I've ever had. I will never forget the look on her face. It is burned into my brain. I will have tears. The tears are even starting to come up now, thinking about what did her expression look like? What was that like for me? But I'm not scared of it. I can feel it. And my brain knows now that those are safe emotions, that I'm competent and capable of just letting them be and accepting them instead of trying to band-aid them with a relationship or eat my way out of it, binge eating or shopping and spending too much money or whatever. People do a variety of things. Now I can just sit with it and I'm like, hey, pain, how are you today? And I can say that it's going to pass. It always passes. When you actually let pain come up to its full fruition, it comes up like a wave and then it crashes. It goes away and dissipates again. And so the reason people don't feel their pain is because they're afraid that it's going to make me out of control or that I can't handle it or it's going to go on forever. And those things aren't true. When you actually feel the pain, let it rage through your body. You'll see it comes up and then it goes down. But if you just accept those waves and just ride the wave, it's okay. Because what is life if you can't feel things? And you don't get to choose what feelings you suppress. If you suppress pain, you will also suppress joy. So you're not feeling the full capacity of your life if you're not allowing yourself to feel pain.
I'm so glad we've gotten to connect. There's just so many mind-blowing moments that I'm having right now with what you're saying. Truly, I don't know how often you coach guys, but I'm digging everything that you're saying all the time. Okay. I didn't know if you were strictly.
It's about half and half. Yeah. I have about 50-50.
You talked about this attachment theory. Now, I'm going to be candid. I don't know about that.
Sure. Attachment forms between 0 to 5 years old, the base of our attachment. So if you imagine attachment is a house, the foundation and the frame are up by 5 years old. Now we can add to it. We're not going to be, if we're a little house, we're not going to be a big house. If we're a big house, we're not going to be a little house. The foundation and the frame is going to be there. We put decorations on it and change the paint colors. We fundamentally have a sort of ingrained attachment at around 5 years old. Now that is somewhat malleable, because attachment is just a pattern of beliefs and behaviors. And those beliefs and those behaviors are imprinted and modeled to us by our relationships with our early caregivers. So people that were close to us, usually our parents and siblings, mostly our parents, when we are little, give us a set of subconscious messages about what does it mean to be in relationship with someone else? What does it mean to be you? They're our mirror. We don't have a mirror other than these people when we're that age. We're not out in the world going through a lot of different diverse experiences with people. We are maybe going to preschool or a very small circle when we're little. But our brains are very dynamic and they're little sponges when we're little. A lot of what happens to us during those really key years give us messages. Those messages may be things like, love is safe. It's okay to express your feelings. They will lead you to safety and somebody will respond to you. The core of who you are is good. You're good at who you are at your core. Or they could be really negative messages like you can't express feelings. Feelings are bad. If you have feelings, you need to quiet them down somehow, not express them. or life's tough and you just need to figure out how to get over it. Suppress your feelings and just figure it out. Nobody's going to be there for you. Or it might be that love is really unsafe or love is really chaotic and it's just, you're always going to need to be on your toes because somebody's going to pull the rug out from underneath you if you're not looking. So this imprints us with things like, I'm not good enough, or I'm defective on the inside, or I can't trust people. And so those messages become deeply, deeply ingrained into our subconscious. Without knowing it, we grow up and we project them out into our romantic relationships because the person that we're romantically involved with is the highest stakes human relationship. It's the highest stakes relationship. When it's the highest stakes relationship, our insecurities tend to come out. Some people form attachments where they're anxious inside of relationships because they got inconsistent emotional attunement and affection as children. So they got some of it, but they didn't get enough to feel safe, leading them to feel anxious about whether or not their needs were going to be met. So inside relationships, these people can be very needy. They can be very clingy. They can have very high needs that are just not going to be met because they're kind of like an empty bucket of needs. Nobody can really meet their need bucket. Really, really crave just this intense love and affection. And they have all the love languages, want it all. And then we have people on the complete opposite side of the spectrum who grew up with emotional neglect. Nobody modeled emotional attunement. In fact, emotions were dismissed, punished, avoided. So these people grow up with messages of being defective and being misunderstood. And so inside of relationships, they have trouble attaching. They have trouble becoming vulnerable and getting close to people. And so they do things like they avoid conflict and they shut down if there's a conflict, or they can stonewall people or ghost people, or after the relationship gets established, they just drop off effort and stop reciprocating, stop meeting their partner's needs. They've learned that getting too close to somebody is not safe, and they become hyper independent. So they have like their needs bucket's like a thimble. A lot of these people attract each other because we are attracted to our shadow. We're attracted to what the traits that we don't inherently carry. And there's evolutionary reasons for that and all sorts of psychological reasons for that. So somebody with a gigantic sized needs bucket gets paired with somebody with a thimble-sized needs bucket who expects their partner to have a thimble-sized needs bucket. The person with the gigantic needs bucket thinks that their partner should have a gigantic needs bucket, and then they smother that person. And the person that's being smothered is the person that is most afraid of being smothered. And so then you have like an anxious avoidant dynamic.
Are you sure you're not in my house right now?
No, it's just so common.
I'm just laughing hysterically right now because I, honest to God, feel like that's Elizabeth and I.
It's the anxious avoidant trap is just like, look.
She has said for years to me, you have enough emotion for the both of us and then some.
Yeah.
Awesome. I would love for you to have some emotion in this. I would love for you to get fired up. And she's like, listen, you don't need a parade every time you unload the dishwasher.
Yeah.
But I did it. You didn't ask me. She's like, awesome. That's called being an adult. I'm like, I also took the trash out too. Did you see? I took the trash out. She's like, great. You don't need that.
I mean, psychologically you do, it's just not a healthy need. My clients are usually in this space of asking or looking for too much, too little. Is this normal? Is this not normal? And it's my job to guide them and say, hey, this isn't normal. This isn't healthy. This isn't going to work and make you happy. And so here's what needs to be done to fix those things. So the anxious avoidant dynamic is so fixable. It's so fixable. It can even be fixed if just one person wants to fix it, which is interesting because people think it takes two to fix something. Sometimes it does. Sometimes one party is so broken that it doesn't matter what the other person does. They're going to be broken and they need to do their own work. But sometimes we just have people are sort of mildly insecurely attached. And so if one person starts to show up secure, they can create a real positive cycle because they're not triggering their partner. Interactions are more positive. Then that other person sees that great modeling of those secure behaviors and steps up to the plate. So I see that all the time, that just one person deciding to do the attachment work can create a total shift in the relationship.
Well, that's what I'm working on right now is the attachment work. Not smother my wife with all these emotions, all these feelings, all this stuff, but really trying to give her that space to breathe, but also at the same time saying, hey, I'm seeing some results of this. Again, going back to our initial conversation of you having to get to the point of saying, I don't have to be everybody's favorite cup of coffee. I don't have to. I don't have to let their opinion of me dictate and kind of ruin my day in some respects because they don't get to have that power, and I'm giving them that power.
Oh.
And I'm labeling them
Yes,
too.
they
That was a
are.
big takeaway for me too. You labeling somebody a jerk, like that's not their label to take on.
It gives me the right to say that this one person is this identity of a jerk. Is that right? I can say they did something I don't like. They behave in a way that doesn't work for me and I'm not going to participate in it. That's cool. It's not my job to be an accusation against that person. That's not okay. That's not of God. That's not loving thy neighbor. Loving thy neighbor is saying, you know what? God made them and loves them just as much as me. It's not my job to give them an identity. It's not my job to fight them. It's not my job to even convince them to like me. Why? Why would I convince somebody to like me? That's a waste of my space and my energy. My job is to be me. My job is to be respectful, to be honest, to be loving, and to be kind, and to simply not participate with people that can't give that back to me. You just stop participating. You just walk away from it. Isn't that what Jesus taught us to do? Jesus didn't say punch him back in the face. And I know we've got this culture that it's like we're weak if we don't fight back. And I'm like, you know what? Actually, that takes incredible strength to not fight back. It takes incredible strength. And sometimes you do have to pick your battles. There are things worth fighting for in this life. There are some things worth fighting for. You can't walk away from absolutely everything. But when it comes to your average, everyday insult on TikTok or somebody getting upset in traffic, even if my husband says something off color, okay. At the end of the day, I am 100% confident we're going to work through that. Even if it needs a discussion, we'll have a discussion. If not, who cares? Get a cup of coffee and you'll be fine in 5 minutes.
I love that so much, Dr. Sarah. Thank you so much for that. Well, as we start to wrap up, my question that I kind of want to maybe end with or camp on is we got ladies, we got gentlemen, we got diverse crowd. Our statistics show us that it's just all over the board who listens. So everyone always asks, who's your target market? I'm like, I don't care. I don't get wrapped up into that. If you want to push play.
That's fine too. Everybody, anybody with an internet.
Exactly. If you want to push play on this, I'm glad that you played with us. I'm glad you're in our sandbox today. That's where I'm at. Somebody right now is sitting wherever they're on their run, wherever they may be as we continue this discussion. What's your one advice you would tell somebody right now if they feel like they're hiding behind this mask of, I'm never going to get free of this. I'm never going to get free of this feeling, this insecurities, this attachment stuff. What would be your counsel to them?
Can't, never could. As a man thinketh, so is he. Your thoughts are the most powerful thing you have. They're the most powerful thing. They are the director of your life. So are you going to buy into that mentality that I can't? Can't, never could. Never will. It starts with deciding. I don't care what it takes. I don't care who I have to call. I don't care what I have to read. I don't care. I'm going to keep fighting until I get there. How do people become successful? I don't care if it's wealth. I don't care if it's in relationships. I don't care if it's in mental health. I don't care if it's fitness. How do people get there? They get there by one, deciding that they're going to do it. And two, when you hit an obstacle, you decide you're going to figure it out and you do whatever it takes and you keep trying and trying and trying and trying and trying. And I get that people are tired, but you know what's more exhausting? Living in misery and living in agony of your own choosing, of your own victimization, because you are a bystander to your thoughts. The first step in healing, the first thing I teach my clients is you have to understand that you actually do have an authority over your thoughts and that the brain is neuroplastic and you will degrade the neural connections associated with those negative thoughts and you can replace them with new connections associated with the thoughts that are productive and healthy. It's neuroscience. If you don't want to believe me, look up neuroplasticity. It's neuroscience.
I mean, it is coming from a wildcat, so I don't know how credible that really is, though. I mean, really.
Well, you know what? I mean, most of the state is blue, okay? Wildcat blue, not political blue. Wildcat blue,
I
right?
know, but I'm just trying to think. It's the wrong kind of blue. It's not a Carolina light blue. I mean, God's favorite color is light blue. Clearly, look at the sky.
You know, also what I've learned to appreciate
What's
is
that?
that each his own.
Ooh.
And that's a beautiful thing. We need difference in the world, and difference can be celebrated. It doesn't have to make us angry.
Right.
Like, you do you, boo-boo. You know, if you're not hurting me.
I was in Vegas a number of years back, and I was watching North Carolina, Kentucky, truly, in person. I was so excited. My buddy and I went. Our wives went. It was around Christmas time. Halftime of the game comes on, and I think Carolina might have been down. We ended up losing, by the way. At halftime, the guy comes out, the MC comes out during the event, and he says, hey, Carolina, Kentucky fans, how's everybody tonight? And of course, crowd erupts, and he goes, hey, I know one thing y'all got in common tonight. Kind of silence falls over the crowd, and he goes, you both hate Christian Leitner, and the crowd just erupts.
Well, that'd be true. I try to hate anybody, but strong dislike for,
Anybody that comes from that school is my not friend and they're not welcome in my sandbox.
Right.
Just saying. Nobody likes the devil in their sandbox. Just saying.
Right. I understand.
Sarah, again, as we start to wrap up, I just want to thank you. I don't know why on earth you said, hey, I'm going to give this guy in Oregon who's obsessed with North Carolina, who maybe has some attachment issues, who still has a stuffed animal from his childhood. I'm going to give this guy a chance. Why on earth did you say yes to us?
Because my mission is to help people. If I get to the point where I say, oh, I'm too good for this or I'm too good for that, I'm not doing God's work. I'm not doing God's calling. I go where God leads me to go. I obviously can't help everybody in the world, but if there's an opportunity for me to use my voice and to use my platform to tell somebody that's really deeply hurting, because when I tell you I was in the lowest place a human can be, I'm not even going to share some of the thoughts that I had after when I was at rock bottom. And if I can come back from that, then God gets all the glory, and I will praise him in public, anywhere, any day, all day long, because he led me to where I am right now. And all I want at the end of the day is to please God and to be a vessel for what I feel like he has taught me, which is that I am powerful and I am loved and I do have a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7, I believe. Hang on to that. You are powerful, you are loved, and you do have a sound mind. You just have to get back to it. It's just been filled with a bunch of noise and beliefs that may not be true. I mean, at the end of the day, I really, truly do want to help people.
Well, I feel like you've done that. Cross that off your accomplished goal list today. You helped somebody. So at least me, hopefully others as well.
Yeah.
We do this silly thing called Senseless. It's these 6 random questions that we do. And I usually have a North Carolina cup. I make a big deal about it. And, but if you want to send me a Kentucky cup, I might not use it.
Kentucky cup, but it might just go in the garbage.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is, I told you I was at work. There's a guy actually out in my wash bay right now that has a Kentucky Wildcats hat on. So it's kind of poetic that he has that on. So any of it. So we do this thing. So I'm going to roll using the internet. By the way, you can Google this dice roll. So if you're ever in need of a dice for whatever reason, you can get one on Google. So here we go. We're going to roll for you. I rolled for you. I can't show you, but I promise you got a number 6. So here's the question. Number 6 and again, it's just silliness, just fun at the end of the show. It's 6 o'clock. What's for dinner?
6 o'clock. What's for dinner? Oh my gosh. DoorDash from Drake's, probably. Drake's is a local Lexington restaurant that we absolutely love. They have just about everything. My husband and I, we work a lot and we have 4 kiddos. Luckily, we're successful to the point where we can DoorDash a lot, but it's just become part of, I wish we could cook more. It's just a time factor. And it's like, okay, give me a salmon salad from Drake's, I guess.
All right, salmon salad. Well, again, Sarah, I want to say thank you. And I truly say this from the bottom of my heart. I'm glad we got to connect. I think you had so many amazing just concepts, so many amazing ideas. I'm walking away with a lot of stuff, and I hope others are as well. So I just want to say thank you again.
You're totally welcome. And people can reach out to me at my website, thedatingdecoder.com, and I'd be happy to work with them.
And yes, where can they follow you on TikTok? Of course, for those TikTok aficionados.
The Dating Decoder. So The Dating Decoder.
All right, guys and gals, kids and campers alike. I don't know about anybody else. It's always a little rough when the mirror gets put in front of you, isn't it? Now, for some of you probably carry around a mirror. Or do we do that anymore? Or do we just pull out our phone and flip open the camera to selfie mode? Well, if that's you right now, let's do that. Let's pull that camera out, flip that camera on, flip it into selfie mode so you're staring at the screen. What do you see? What's jumping out at you that is so wrong with you? And you may be thinking to yourself, well, Neil, it's not on my face. That's not what's wrong with me. You need to see my body. And Neil, actually, it's not even my body. It's really this scar that no one really can see because it's still hidden, maybe behind a mask. Okay, so if that's you right now, what's it going to take? How long is it going to take for you to finally realize and recognize that can be healed? There is a great physician, and no, he's not in Lexington, Kentucky. He's not in Louisville. He's not in Chapel Hill. He's not even in Medford, Oregon. He's not anywhere. Or is he? He's actually everywhere at once. It's this amazing word called omnipresent. In other words, he's everywhere at once. And so I just want to ask you, I don't know if you're a person of faith or not. I don't know, but I truly believe, and I think Sarah does as well. Dr. Sarah, that is. I believe she believes this as well, that that great physician can truly heal you from this mask condition that you may be suffering from. And maybe you need a friend. Maybe you need help along the way. Well, I bet you if you reached out, I know she would be there for you. So as we close out, I just want to remind you of this. Don't ever forget. Remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned till next week when we walk in other people's shoes.